This next training is sort of in a category of its own. It's visitation, but it's visitation under very special circumstances. We call this training a light to the dying. There are, of course, all sorts of inner conflicts with death and dying. You see, there's two differences between the sick and everyone else. One knows that his time is limited. Facing a dying person is not a very easy thing to do. In facing the dying person, we face our own mortality, which can affect us in subconscious and even conscious ways that we may not anticipate, such as feelings of guilt that we get to go on and continue living in this world and in this life, while the person that we're visiting is coming to the end of their time in this world. But we also know that in visiting those that are dying, we are responding to Jesus' command to love, which means self-denial, denying ourselves the comfort of absence. And it's amazing how many people can find excuses or reasons not to visit during times like this. We're going to probably run into some uncomfortable conversations while we're visiting those that are dying. Some people don't want to talk about anything. Other people can talk in rather callous or shocking ways, while other people are going to talk in very real and deep ways. And all of these things can be uncomfortable. We need to accept that it is not easy to discuss dying with a person who is dying. We may be able to talk about death all day long among our friends and how we think we'll be able to deal with it. And it may be easy when we are not actually facing it. But to actually be in the midst of it and the reality of it is a whole other circumstance indeed. So we must deny ourselves by sacrificing our comfort for the sake of another. There's all sorts of factors that influence the dying. One of these factors, of course, is age and responsibility. Is the person young? It is much more difficult to be able to minister to a young person that is dying. Is a future being lost? Are kids being left behind? These all impact what's going to go on in this conversation and in this visit. Individual personality traits, of course, influence how a person dies, and how they react during that time, and how we are to react to them. The individual perspectives on life and death. The person that you may be visiting is going to have different ways of reacting to this. Denial, anger, bargaining, depression, acceptance. These are all stages of facing the reality of death. And the person that we deal with could be in any one of these stages, or could switch back and forth between them at different times. May experience these steps differently in no particular order at all. Some may never even attain the final step of acceptance. There's cultural differences on how to face death. Subcultures including. All of our different cultural experiences and cultures develop systems of belief about life and death and the meaning of sickness and health. Some believe that all things are by chance, while others believe that all things that are controlled by God. Others believe that there are consequences of the fall and that they affect everyone differently. One might display great emotion, another one might display very little emotion at all, but stoically accepts what they're going through without showing much. Personal histories are a factor. We remember the people who have been important, positive or negative, in our lives. We remember those that have harmed and those that have helped us. We recall our success and our failures, our tears and our laughter. We harbor memories and feelings related to the death of those who we have loved. We want to give the patient an opportunity to truly review their life, both the good and the bad. So asking the patient stories about their life is good, about moments in history, about things that were most important, most significant, about things they felt like they did well. And sometimes it's even appropriate to ask about regrets they had, and to be able to walk through those things with them. Listen for comments that relate to the past and follow up on those things and ask more questions about them. What has given this person meaning in their life? What have been the most important lessons? People love to share these kinds of stories. What are the greatest regrets? Remember, Everything that's shared should be kept confidential unless you have specific permission to share that with someone else. It's good to reminisce with people when they're going through this, the reality of their finiteness, facing the ultimate reality of death. As they reminisce, unresolved issues may come up that need some attention before the person can die in peace, and you might be the one that helps them to come to resolve some of these issues, to find peace with it. Help the person you're visiting to more comfortably close the door to this life and transition into the new. You'll do that by allowing them to share their stories, by making sure you apply grace and forgiveness to their stories, and by sometimes reminding them that there are some issues in life that we just can't do any more with, but have we done all we can? And maybe there's just nothing more that we can do at this moment. Helping them come to terms with issues like that. When it comes to anticipating death, we know that the closer one gets to death, the less connected they may feel to those who have been close to them. They may sense a feeling of no longer belonging. They may talk less and distance people more. The personality type is going to play a lot into this. People tend to die as they lived. So if they're extroverts, they'll tend to want to talk a whole lot. If they're introverts, they may not want to talk about these things at all. They may not want to have tons of time or interaction with others. Give them the freedom to be who they are, even in these moments. The degree of fulfillment they've experienced in their life is certainly going to affect how they face their death. They may feel like they've lived a good, full life, doing all that they can, and this is going to help them a lot. They may feel that they're not ready to die because there's some things left unfulfilled. And listen, and hear, and empathize, and comfort. Extend God's forgiveness as you sense it's needed in their life. Some goals while working with the dying. Remember, we're there for an emotional and spiritual support. We grow when we increase our faith. Your patient has experienced some difficulties before this time. Remind them of those things. Ask them about those things, challenges that they've gone through before. Did God help in any way during those times? And if so, ask your patient to describe how. In doing so, his or her faith might be strengthened, just like the Israelites who wandered through the desert, or who recalled times when God was faithful to them and brought them through difficult situations, and how it helped them in their present difficulties. This is a way to be able to work with folks that are dealing with the reality of death. Calling back on times that God has brought them through things before. Reminding them that God is the same God who is with them now. Remember, say things to them like it's okay to cry when you notice that they're on the verge or beginning to do so. Tell them it's okay to feel frightened, because it is. And it's okay to feel angry. Don't try to make them suppress these emotions. Give them the freedom to experience what they're feeling. Nothing can separate us from God's love. This is a good verse to use with those that are in difficult situations. You can say this when you pray with them. Gentle touch. Yeah, it's good to touch as long as you're not going to infect them with anything else. Remember that a hand on the forearm or a hand on the hand or a hand on the shoulder, that's a good thing. It lets them know that you're really truly present with them. Suffering gains meaning when we suffer. Suffering gains meaning when the sufferer knows that someone cares. So in other words, when we enter into it and let them know that we're there with them, being with them gives meaning to the moment, being a witness to their life and even to these moments that they're going through. The goal, of course, is to experience personal growth. Yes, even at this time. We grow whenever we increase in our faith. And this is one of the times that people are often open to spiritual growth. It doesn't, just because someone's facing the reality of death, and it could even be imminent, doesn't mean that growth is done. No, this could be a door of opportunity for the most significant spiritual growth that they may have ever experienced in their life. A time when they can forgive others and forgive themselves. A time when they can accept forgiveness from others and even from God. A time to move into peace after reviewing their life story. Don't interrupt or criticize when they're sharing their life story. Thank them for sharing that story with you. Really, this is one of the most important things you can do when visiting those that are dying, is to help them and to enter into their life story with them, so that they can remember the meaning and the purpose that their life certainly has.